We saw hundreds and hundreds of girls, but the challenge was only being patient and waiting until that person walked through the door and they would just sort of embody that character. And it happened with each one of the Pretty Little Liars.
How did Shea Mitchell shoot an audition reel with no money and barely any free time? Did Sasha Pieterse lie to her castmates about her age? And instead of Aria, which Pretty Little Liars character did Lucy Hale initially have her eyes on? Hi, I'm Janet, and here are all the juiciest Pretty Little Liars audition secrets. Shay Mitchell.
I think the last time I saw you, you had a pink stripe through your hair.
Yeah, well, when your parents preach individuality and you don't know who you are.
You weren't well. Why do you call it? So weird running into you here.
Pretty Little Liars entertained and sometimes frightened us for the better part of a decade, and we're still not used to life without the liars. It's also hard to think that before becoming their characters, the cast of Pretty Little Liars had to endure the grueling process of auditioning for the show. Luckily for us, the girls have always been quite open about how they got where they are. Shay Mitchell, the actress who portrayed Emily, might just be the most open of all, having posted a video on her YouTube channel in which she reacts to her audition tape. Needless to say, she didn't hold back in cringing at herself.
You know, you hope that as the years go on, as in with any job, that you get better at your craft. So looking back on this, as the years go by, I get more mortified and more mortified when I watch it because I just see.
According to Shay, this audition was the biggest she had ever gone to, and she remembers being incredibly nervous. Pretty Little Liars was her absolute dream show, especially because Gossip Girl was one of her all-time favorite shows at the time. Before the audition, Shay was living in Toronto, doing bottle service, meaning she was selling liquor in lounges and nightclubs.
I was in the coat check room reading my lines, then I'd go out and be like, hello, what can I get you to drink? Okay, Belvedere kettle, great, okay, awesome. Go back into the coat check room, read my lines because I had this audition the next day.
Shay multitasked all right, and while she says people thought she was odd hanging out in the coat check room all the time, it totally paid off. When it came to shooting the actual audition tape, Shay says she shot it at her agency's building in a tiny little room with a barely there green screen and a mic, and she had to beg the secretary to film and record her lines with her. This was all because, at the time, Shay couldn't afford to go to the studio to be filmed by professionals.
We kind of lost touch on remember?
It made it easier to
I can't, there's like no pauses in this. I should have taken a breath.
Allison yesterday of what she looked like now.
Shay said that once the network decided to fly her out to LA, it was nothing fancy. She actually flew coach. The network did buy her lunch on the plane though, which she thought was absolutely amazing because she couldn't afford it otherwise. Even though Shay found out that same week that she got the part of Emily, things weren't exactly as straightforward as we might think. It turns out that Shay wasn't the show's creator, Marlene King's first choice. This actually came down to the fact that Shay is nothing like Emily in real life. According to Marlene, Shay is the girliest person she ever met. Well, obviously, she had a more sporty person in mind for the character. When Shay came in for her final audition, the casting directors were actually leaning towards casting another girl. So how did Shay manage to turn things around? She nailed the final audition and gave Marlene no other choice but to cast her. Sounds like Emily when it comes to swimming, right? Oh, and there's one more thing that sealed Shay's fate on Pretty Little Liars. A rock. That's right, Shay has an actual good luck rock that she carries to important events. I picked it up at a store, Shay said, and I put it in my pocket to keep me grounded. I still have the rock. I've had it for 7 years. Well, the rock certainly didn't work when Shay heard she got the part. Nothing could possibly have kept her grounded in that moment.
Wanted to tell you book the part and I was like, what? And I freaked out and I remember just like swirling around. It was a swirly chair and I'm like, oh my God, and I'm screaming bloody murder. And I remember thinking whoever is next door to me hates me.
We're pretty sure that if her neighbors did know what was happening, they'd have let her scream the entire night. And the best part of the entire process, according to Shay, getting to fly back to Toronto, not in coach, but actual first class. That was when she knew her life was about to change.
I don't know if I necessarily booked this part or if the girl that was reading with me got this part for me because of her amazing acting.
Whether it was because of the girl reading with her or Shay looking absolutely adorable, we're glad she managed to snag the part. Before we go on, how about subscribing? The Catcher brings you new videos throughout the week, all focused on your favorite shows and movies, real-life partners, and cast drama. We've got it covered. Troian Bellisario.
With Spencer, we very much wanted an actress who just sort of embodied the confidence that Spencer has.
Troian had confidence, but did she have Spencer's confidence? Apparently, that wasn't the problem. When coming to the audition for Spencer, the network's biggest concern surrounding Spencer was the way Troian looked. Initially, Marlene King pulled her aside and told her that she was wearing too little makeup for a character in Pretty Little Liars. She said, "We were like, come back. Go turn into a pretty little liar and come back." And when Troian came back, she absolutely owned it. The scene they used in her audition was supposed to be one in which Spencer sneaks out of the house with Ren to smoke a cigarette, but ultimately it got cut from the pilot. When asked about how she herself felt about getting cast as Spencer, Troian said she was pretty certain she wasn't right for the part. "In my heart, I felt in line with her, but in the book, she was a blonde-haired, green-eyed, all-American girl next door. There was no way they were going to cast me." On top of that, Troian joked by saying that she had no idea how to do her own hair and makeup. She actually thought she looked good when going in for the audition. In fact, she'd spent a long time in front of the mirror before going in. When Marlene asked her to change her look, Troian was mortified. She nonetheless did what they asked, and the rest is history.
Spencer is supposed to look a certain way, but they didn't need me to fit that for the audition process. And so I just went in and I had a total blast in the audition.
She just blew us away. We knew, like, that was our Spencer.
You might find it interesting to know, however, that the Spencer we know and love might have been portrayed by someone else on the cast. Actually, there might have been several different faces, but more on that in a minute. Back to the casting of Spencer. It turns out that Janelle Parrish, the actress who plays Mona, initially auditioned alongside Troian for the role. And things went well, too. Apparently she got several callbacks for the role, but the casting directors in the end passed on her. Parrish says she remembers being super bummed because she loved the script. But about a month later, they called her in for Mona, and she booked the part. If we think about it, her rejection was actually a blessing in disguise. No one plays Mona better than Janelle, and Troian really is the very essence of Spencer. Sasha Pieterse.
"I need you." Bullcrap. I know you're still A, and I know what you're doing to Lucas. But I heard Lucas said. No, I'm done. I don't want to see you. I want to hear from you. God, I don't even want to know you.
Are your ears misleading you, or is Sasha Pieterse, aka Allison, reading the part of Hanna with Janelle Parrish? Well, that's just a little taste of what might have been.
The girl that plays Maya, Bianca Lawrence, she tried out for Hanna, and so did I, and so did Ashley Benson. So we were testing for Hanna at first.
All at the same time?
All at the same time.
Yup, Allison might not have been Allison, but Hanna. That's because when Sasha first went in for the audition, she didn't think she had what it took to play a character as manipulative yet enticing as Allison, especially since she was only 12 at the time. As it turns out, Marlene King thought the exact opposite. She said, "We had Sasha read for Hanna, and we were going to test her at the studio. And then we found out she was only 12. Not that she couldn't play a teenager, but I knew what Hanna was going to do, and I was like, do we really want a 12-year-old doing those things?" Another factor that came into play was the fact that actors under the age of 16 could only work a certain amount of hours. As we all know, with Allison being presumed dead and all, this wouldn't exactly pose a problem if they cast Sasha. And so it happened. "Allison reminded me a lot of Regina George on steroids," Sasha said. "Allie is so intricate. There are so many layers to her. She contradicts herself." When asked about it, Marlene said that despite Sasha's age, she really gelled with the other girls on the screen test. On top of that, Sasha never really did act her age. She was so poised and dramatic on screen, and she really projected the right kind of authority over the girls, even in real life. This, however, might come down to the fact that Sasha didn't exactly tell her castmates how old she was right away.
How about you lied to all of us at the beginning of the show?
I didn't lie to anyone. No, I promise I never would have done that.
We didn't know you were 12.
Anything. I didn't say anything. You didn't ask. You didn't ask the right question.
In Sasha's defense, she really didn't look 12. Still though, to give you some perspective, Troian Bellisario, being 11 years older than Sasha, was 23 at the time of the pilot. They both played characters of the same age, and none of us even noticed. Ashley Benson.
With Hanna, we were looking for someone who embodied sort of that feeling of the it girl, the girl who's like the top of the A-list, but that yet you wouldn't hate her, you would love her, and she could still be vulnerable.
Before Ashley auditioned for the role of Hanna, she was working on a show called Eastwick, which was supposed to be a big hit on ABC. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the show was canceled after one season, and Ashley was crushed. If the show wasn't canceled though, she probably never would have auditioned for Pretty Little Liars in the first place.
And in that moment, I was like, wow, I'm never gonna work again.
I was able to support myself because I was working on a show. And I didn't really know what was gonna happen after that.
Ashley said that after that heartbreak, she went into serious self-doubt. She was so passionate about the show that she really thought she had missed her final shot at realizing her dreams. The very day after she heard about the cancellation, Ashley was called over to the network, where she arrived in absolute tears.
And Marlene always says, when I came in to see her the first time she met me for PLL, she was like, your eyes were so swollen, you look like you've been crying all day.
Marlene also went on to say in different interviews that she immediately knew in that moment that Ashley needed to play Hanna. We knew we wanted a blonde for this role because it was one of the last roles to cast, and other than Allison, we did not have a blonde in the show. There's just something magical that happens with Ashley and the way the camera captures those eyes.
I don't know where I would be, to be honest. My life would be completely different. Just kind of a blessing that it got canceled. I mean, it changed my life.
Lucy Hale. Of all the liars, Lucy Hale was the most familiar face, having played various roles in shows like Wizards of Waverly Place, The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and The O.C. At the time of the Pretty Little Liars casting, Lucy was just coming off the CW drama Privileged, and everyone wanted to do a show with her. Rightly so, Lucy didn't exactly have a formal audition. According to Marlene, Lucy was always going to be on the show. They just didn't know which of the characters she'd be playing. She and Lucy met over coffee, and she gave Lucy some time to read through the script.
Like immediately loved Aria because, you know, she's similar to myself, but I also read for Hanna just because, you know, she's super sarcastic. She's like the comedic relief, just like kind of out of her mind.
Marlene, however, didn't see Lucy as Hanna. In order to persuade her, Marlene had Lucy read through the script one more time, and Lucy ended up agreeing with her. And so, Aria Montgomery was born.
You know, ultimately, I was more of an Aria, and Ashley is a brilliant Hanna.
She also went on to say that what really drew her to the show in the first place was the fact that she had heard of the books and had a feeling it would be something special for the fans. Looks like Lucy was right. Did seeing the cast all young and excited again make you miss the show? What was your favorite part of the video? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching!